Welcome to Her God, a program about women, for women, and with women. Today we're going to talk about the topic of women's health. And we read in the book of Sirach the important place that health and the doctor play in our lives. Sirach chapter 38 says to us that when we are ill, we should not delay, but first pray to the Lord. Then, in verse 10, it tells us, give up your faults and direct your hands rightly and cleanse your heart from all sin. So we've learned here at the Divine Retreat Center and through the ministry of the Divine Retreat Centers throughout the world that to go to confession and to come out with our faults and keep away from sin is a very important matter in our health, our physical and mental and spiritual health. Then Sirach advises us we must give an offering, which is always a good idea to do, to give an offering to balance out our lives so that we don't become so self-centered. Then in verse 12 we have the place for the physician. Then give the physician his or her place, for the Lord created him. Do not let them leave you, for you may need them. There may come a time when recovery lies in the hands of physicians, for they too pray to the Lord, that he will grant them success in diagnosis and in healing for the sake of preserving life. So we are guided in the scripture and through the ministry of Jesus that we are to care for our bodies and we are to remain healthy and free of sin and other disturbances. And so this program is focusing on a woman's health and maybe preventative health and different issues that are affecting us as women. So again with us we have Dr. Cynthia Felix from Cochin, who is ready to speak on the issue of women's health. And we have Mrs. Rena Anthony, who's joining us here in the ministry at Divine Retreat Center with her husband, and who has a lot of experience counseling, and probably we've all faced our own health issues. So Dr. Cynthia, can you inspire us with some helpful thoughts on this?
Well, I first and foremost depend on the greatest physician ever, Jesus Christ himself. And I look up to his pattern that he showed during his incarnation and human living, that he is caring for all aspects of our health. Now, I would briefly like to mention that there is a difference between if you talk about health as being an absence of illness, which is what some people think it is, but really there is a more holistic view to the definition of health, which is your wholesome wellness, which includes all aspects of your well-being, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, all of it put together.
So all of it does kind of tie together.
Yes.
And even in Sirach is showing that the sin and the spiritual and the physical and it's all intertwined.
Yes, it's very much intertwined. For instance, you can have physical illnesses because of some underlying emotional disturbances. You call them psychosomatic illnesses. So your whole body is important to Jesus. First of all, you are the temple of the Holy Spirit. So unless you take care of your physical being, your soul and the rest of all the talents that's invested in you and how you function cannot happen well unless you take care of your body and your good health. Just wanted to read a verse from 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 9. The goal of your faith, the salvation of your souls. So for the salvation of your soul, you are given a physical body while you are on earth through which you can function to the optimum potential that God has given you, through which you are reaching the fullness of your salvation. And for this journey on earth, our responsibility lies in taking good care of our own physical bodies. So with that concept, I want to share to the Christian viewers that a true Christian concept is not just the absence of disease, but maintaining the well-being of your whole being so that you can be most fruitful to Jesus.
And that's the beautiful part that I hear you're bringing out, is that the goal of our health is to provide our soul strength to continue the mission to be saved.
Yes.
And I know in my culture, there's very much of an emphasis on the body. You know, the body beautiful, bodybuilding, And you know, real people put in America, real effort into becoming strong, mighty, climbing mountains, doing all kinds of physical, you know, activities, yoga and all kinds of things, marathons. I think a marathon is 26 miles, you know, but all that effort into the body, you know, and no effort perhaps into the soul, not going to church, not doing any praying, not ever going to confession. So like you're saying, what is health? You know, what is the health? I think that's a really wise, and then too, we can't overbalance and just be praying all the time. You know, God has made us to be whole. So.
Yes, we need to be balanced, and that's a good point too. Jesus himself, again, if we take his model, he would rest, he would go out to the mountainside and have a relaxation time with his Father in prayers and meditation. And he would spend time with the disciples in the wilderness or by the seaside. And so even though he was quite a busy person, you know, in helping a whole bunch of people, we often hear that as an excuse for not taking care of oneself or one's health, that I'm too busy, I'm, you know, I have this and that. But Jesus himself, when you think of it, was probably more busy than any of us put together. I mean, he was catering to a large number of people. But then he balanced it. He knew what to do, and he knew how to take care of himself as well. We don't see him doing anything in an unbalanced way. So I think, to me, the key is to be balanced. And it's when things go out of balance that problems come in.
He had a little built-in help, though. He did not have a car, so he walked everywhere. And if you've ever gone to Israel, you know, from Jerusalem to Nazareth is like 70 miles. So it took 3 days to walk. And you read Jesus, he was walking everywhere. He wouldn't stay anywhere very long, but he'd walk and walk. So actually, he was very physically fit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's another issue too.
And he probably encouraged the disciples to do the same too. When he sent them 2 by 2, he didn't ask them to carry a whole bunch of things and be anxious about it. You know, he made them trust in the Lord, and the provision would come to them, and they would be walking too. And that's a good point too for our discussion, because some of the modern amenities, and I think about this, you know, in some ways being fortunate enough to have lived in 2 different generations, so to speak, because probably 10, 15 years ago, or when I used to have my grandmother, their generation, they would be physically fit. I mean, to me, just by doing the natural things at home.
All the work,
like
they
all
had
the housework.
Walking to the shopping.
Yes. And, you know, for my mother too, in her younger days, she had to walk to the school, which is quite a long way off.
Or to church in the morning.
All of that. So it was a part of their daily life. They didn't have to, you know, drive to the gymnasium and park the car, take the lift and go up and then do exercise.
And do the stair
workout.
machine, doing the stair machine instead of climbing.
Exactly, instead of climbing the stairs to begin with. So that is a paradox that we are facing today as part of what we call modernization, which, you know, in some ways is not always an advancement. So we can always take a leaf from what happened in earlier times and, you know, be balanced in our living situations, especially the younger generation, the working women. We are especially talking about women's issues. I think about young working women who have to care for their children, but at the same time would be having a 12-hour job. I mean, in India, you know, we don't have fixed working hours, especially in private companies. So many of them are really overworked. And the manual laborers, I mean, in rural areas, I mean, Kerala in some ways, we do have, at least for the laborers, I think there are some, you know, fixed working hours, so to speak. But I'm thinking of the factory workers and, you know, some remote villages in India and all of that.
Those are almost anti-health. Yes. That's almost unhealthy. I mean, definitely unhealthy.
Yeah. So in some ways, the government and the society would need to help make these changes happen. But if people are not aware of what they can take and ask for it, I mean, it's not going to happen either. So from our standpoint, we need to educate the women how to balance life and profession in a way that they can take good care of themselves. They shouldn't be facing burnouts, and then they won't be there to take care of their children. So they have to take good care of, love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? So take good care of your own health so that you would be able to take good care of your husband and your children and the rest of the society.
Do you see any, Reena, as you work with women and people in counseling, do you see any health issues that do you feel that are not being addressed well for women, or what do you feel
Actually,
about that?
it is true that women in India are overworking. But very often it is the issue of like they want to support their husband in, say, having a new house or something else coming up. So it is more to support the family. But in the whole process, actually, often women are the heart of the family. They have to come back and do the cooking. They have to be there to care. As you said, they don't take care of themselves. So we do need to figure out what is behind them neglecting their health issues. These motivations, like they need the money. If that is it, then they have to say, okay, money is second. My primary role is maybe in the home or in the family. Or what is my role as a woman? I mean, it can be different in different situations. You know, can I what do you call, afford to take on a job which is too stressful for me, that I cannot be a human being or even a spiritual being for myself or for the family.
And then, you know, the availability to your own self too, in your prayer life. That's a real indicator when the personal prayer life starts to go.
Like not doing cooking properly, not managing the home well. The whole environment changes, all because of other priorities.
So there's some responsibility women need to take. They need to take responsibility for their health and look at their life holistically, I think is what we're saying. And see which part is missing. You know, for me here, I need to do more exercise, but it's so hot in Kerala that it's hard for me to do a lot of walking because I sweat so much. But, you know, we have to step back and look what's missing, what am I not doing right, the food or the overeating certain types of food. And I mean, you can really look at the whole thing and tear it apart. You know, look at your life and where am I unbalanced, as you're saying. Do you see the women neglecting any like area of their health? Like, are they neglecting checkups? And are you going to talk about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and that's one area I'm really burdened about because I hear about young men and women come up with chronic illnesses or the bad outcomes of chronic illnesses rather. Like heart attacks and strokes at much younger ages than what it used to be. So that indicates that they are not taking good care of their health in general, but more so these are lifestyle diseases really. And these happen because people end up having diabetes or high blood pressure called hypertension in relatively younger ages. And that's directly related to a fast food or a sedentary kind of lifestyle, which is
there something wrong with fast food?
Well, if I go to the medical side of things, essentially it's that, you know, the bad fat, which is prevalent more in fast food, or other things that will then be converted to bad fat, will clog up your blood vessels. That's in summary the main concern which people need to be aware of. And people were not meant to eat animal fat this much. You know, God created a wide variety of vegetables and fruits and a mixed diet, really, a healthy, balanced diet. But, you know, high quantities of bad fat, that's what we get in fried food. You know, a lot of potato chips. I mean, I see children in restaurants just eating potato chips. I mean, they're not or even when they're playing, coming home after school, they'll probably be snacking on many unhealthy snacks, which are probably easier for the mother because she'd be coming back after a long day work, and then she'd be, you know, inculcating these unhealthy practices to the kids too. A couple of specific things I can point out. One, if many times when I've seen an obese child, I look at the mother, and the mother most often is obese. And some people have genetic conditions, but many of them, it is directly related to their lifestyle, especially if you see more than one person in the family being obese. So their lifestyle definitely needs to be addressed then. Because if they have diabetes and high blood pressure at a young age group, again, you're at high risk of heart attack, stroke, and cancer even. So prevention is always better than cure. So you need to introspect and probably have one, you know, based on your job, if it's a very stressful job, have a time for yourself, a certain point in the year where you would go for your regular blood checks. Many times what I see in patients is they come in with complications. Especially women, I see that a lot. Women come to you for the first time and they have a complication. Like for instance, they would never know they're a diabetic. They have face puffiness or whatnot, and they come and see you. By then your kidneys are already damaged. Or they'll have a chest pain, they just want to go for a checkup. They already have their heart muscles damaged. But this could have been avoided if they had a regular maintenance checkup. Some companies do provide that, and in general, for some reason, men take advantage of it more so than women.
And companies, but how much is it? I mean, to get a physical.
It is expensive. It is expensive.
Is it in Kerala?
No, the bundled ones, the executive bundles are expensive, but not everyone needs all of it.
How about a family? If you have a family doctor and you're going regularly to your family doctor and reporting,
what I would advise on a personal basis. But that's not a very prevalent custom in India. If you ask a young family in their 20s or 30s, they don't have a family doctor. They only go to a hospital if there's an accident, a trauma, some kind of an emergency or a complication, like I said. By then, it would be a little too late for the chronic illnesses. It's best to catch them early and control them so that they don't go into complications. And that's one area I see women neglected in the younger ones.
I think also, and it might be something new for some women, is, to really keep track of the health history of your family.
Yes.
The past relatives. We should really keep track of that and inform the doctor.
Yes.
Because I didn't realize that.
You'd be at higher risk. In those cases,
well, it helps the doctor know what could be bothering you.
Yeah.
And many people think they're young. They don't expect to be sick so quickly, but they don't realize their whole lifestyle is such that it is really, really, troubling their body, and their whole system is going out of gear. And so it is totally unexpected for them that they are sick or there's something really troubling them.
And one thing is the environment, because the current environment is different from what it used to be in terms of pollution and the quality of food, highly processed food that we are eating. So in general, things are different. That's one reason why people are getting all these old age illnesses in much younger ages these days. And also their own stress, the stress levels, the cortisol, those hormones, stress hormones, they call it, they increase obesity. They increase your chances of having a heart attack and things of that nature. So the constant stress of work and the multiple responsibilities, all of that will add up. So in general, unless you fight against the tide, you would be at a higher risk. And also people from Kerala are known to have a predisposition to diabetes in general, just the waist circumference, the way the genetic makeup is. So there has to be conscious efforts, and this won't just fall from out of the blue. I mean, you have to make conscious efforts for your family.
I think that's interesting. Yeah. Gee, I don't know what happened, if I'm not exercising, I'm overeating the wrong foods, then after some time, I think as you're saying, it's going to just come out of the blue that I'm quite sick,
But in reality, it was happening all along. You just ignored it until it really bursted, And by then it could be fatal in some cases, so it's best to avoid that. And also teaching children the right healthy pattern. That's one thing I want to also address to the women, because they are the ones who can really control that. The eating habits and good physical activity. These days, you hardly see children playing on the streets or being physically active. That's one bad side from a Western lifestyle that, especially Kerala is quickly adapting, and which is not very healthy. Most of the kids are playing video games and all that. Whereas in the US, as you would know, they are having conscious efforts in schools these days. They have fixed PT, classes, but also government. This is funny. I have to say this because I've experienced this in the US too. When I didn't have much money, that's when I would go to a KFC or a McDonald's. Because you could get a lot of food, high-calorie food for real cheap. But then these fast food joints in India are a status symbol. I mean, to me, that was kind of interesting.
It's a status symbol, and to have junk.
So in some ways, I think the government in the US, they're making regulations to cut down the high-calorie foods, and you have to advertise the calories these days. So the companies, so in general, the shift is from the Western population is realizing the dangers. They went through this like 2 decades back. and now they want to have a healthy lifestyle, and they're turning more towards the Indian diet, the Mediterranean diet, whereas Indians are going after the Western diet, which was like 2 decades back.
And that obesity is the prevailing health issue in the United States.
Yes.
You know, which I think it's kind of funny, you know, in America, there's sort of a trend of blame the government, you know. If I'm not eating the right food, well, the government, you know, should have told me. I mean, excuse me, but, you know, we have control over what we put in our mouth when the bottom line comes. So I think it's
individual responsibility.
It's true. Actually, the very natural foods that we receive, even here at Divine, the simple diet, you know, the healthy boiled vegetables, no pesticides, things like that.
Also, I feel sometimes women think they make all the sacrifices for the sake of the family. Maybe they may cook a good meal for the family or for the husband to take home, take lunch off to the office, or the children. But when it comes to themselves, they just eat the scraps or just do a quick junk food.
My mom is hard-boiled eggs.
Yes, okay.
More hard-boiled than a hard-boiled egg, you know. That's
so,
a good point,
and very often even checkups, they say let the others do the checkup. I'll think of it later, like when you calculate maybe the finances or the time. They give priority maybe to the children, I think, but women have to learn to even give enough importance to themselves.
They take the children for the checkup, right?
Yeah.
But then they themselves, which is also modeling to the children that the mother doesn't, you know, take care of her health, which we don't want to model that either. Are there any like special like exams? I know in the United States they have, you know, maybe you're going to talk about that, the female exams. If you what you think about that, about mammograms and things like that.
Yeah, in general, we were thinking about the health systems and which involves preventative care, not just curative treatments. So there are a whole bunch of checkups that women can have for some issues that are specific to women. For instance, issues related to the breast, like breast cancer. So you talked about mammogram as a preventative screening tool. There are debates these days, but that is one option. But also simple things like breast self-examination. Perhaps when you go to your family doctor once in a while, probably they should start there. Have a fixed family doctor, someone who knows the entire family quite well, so you can have a consistency. At least the doctor will remind you, come and meet me next year. Right. You know, at least that would be an incentive for you to go see her on a regular basis. Then she can teach you how to do a breast self-exam, which you can do at home in the comfort of your own home. That's again prevention of breast cancer. There are preventative exams for other forms of cancer like pap smear, but those are not quite commonly done in India, but for specific situations when there are risk factors, the doctor can advise you. So the personal opinion about India is that if you have risk factors or based on your history, the doctor can advise you because there are no definite guidelines for that.
Risk factors being it's in the family history?
Family and also the lifestyle. Some lifestyles can have a higher chance, other STDs, things of that nature. So you know, the doctor will need to put together the whole history and the details that you're giving them. The reason I say that is in India, if you just give them as a guideline, not all of these preventative care would happen. So the other thing is hormones, female hormones. Once you cross menopause, you would have, you know, people who have symptoms because of menopause, they should know that there are hormonal options. So you can discuss risk versus benefit with your doctor. These are all things you need to discuss with your doctor. I'm just putting it out there so that you can talk to your family doctor, someone who has seen you on a regular basis. The other thing is osteoporosis, especially for older women. As they get older, their bones, especially women, are more prone for osteoporosis. And this is one disease where being obese is good because of, the thinner ones have a higher risk of osteoporosis. But anyway, so you can prolong or rather delay osteoporosis by being active, physical activity. So physical activity, bottom line, is a very good thing. You can do it in the comfort of your own home. You can, if you have a second floor, you can climb up the stairs.
Weight-bearing activity.
Yeah. You know, one thing my husband suggested and has helped me is he has made sure my study is upstairs and my clothes and everything is actually upstairs, so that I'm forced to climb up each time.
Get exercise.
Yeah,
That's cute.
so that's a natural exercise, and or playing with your kids or playing with animals, dogs. I mean, keeping yourself, so it's more natural. You know, or climbing, taking the stairs, simple things.
Hand washing.
Hand washing, good hygiene, good hygiene. Yes, absolutely.
No. I mean doing all the wash by hand.
Yeah,
And clothes washing. Sorry.
yeah, and even the kitchen things. I mean, I don't know if myself included, this generation would go back to what the older generation used to do in terms of we used to grind the flour from scratch.
These
and all that.
activities, yeah.
Yeah, but at least some basic things in the kitchen rather than it being mostly eating out. You know, even the basic kitchen things, washing your clothes, at least some clothes, if you bend down and wash your clothes, so that helps your tummy, all of that. But coming to the other point, which I wanted to mention too, the bad addictions. So tobacco, so it's not just smoking. In India, among women folks, I have seen quite a few tobacco smokers, both among the rich as well as the poor. I haven't seen so much in the middle class.
I know the beetle and the pan masala and things like that is there.
There are a lot of, especially women, I don't want to name communities or anything, but I guess most people know what I'm referring to. There are certain populations that, for whatever the cultural reasons are, have been using this for many years, and probably it's more of a cultural thing than anything else. But smoking, bidi smoking in those communities is what I was referring to. But also the lifestyle of drinking and smoking in the upper class. I've seen that as well.
Do
as
women
being
have
a status
that?
symbol. Yes.
Are you seeing women with alcohol problems?
Yes,
Alcohol?
not in all states in India. I've seen girls getting into smoking and drugs and alcohol quite at young ages. Again, this is the peer pressure which we imbibed, which probably wasn't the case many years back. You see the movies, you're getting influenced by advertisement and all kinds of influences.
Yeah.
I would like to add also that today in family social circles, there is a lot of soft liquor, in the name of soft liquor, and from soft liquor they move on to hard liquor. It is very prevalent for women to be also drinking. Even in the family, with even elders sitting there, sometimes even elders are there, and they too share some of it. And so slowly it is an acceptable form of behavior,
Less
pattern.
stigmatized.
Yes, and it is part of the cultural status situation, things like that. And so it is creeping in a very insidious way, many habits like this. And so I think we need to hear the voice of God calling us back to where are you? Like if not Adam, where are you, each one of us? Because slowly then they end up into depressions, they end up into other crises, relationship problems when they have alcohol in communities and parties, and so many other crises crops up. And that's when then they hear the voice of God knocking at their door, come back,
And on that note, I wanted to quickly also add, it could be because of some underlying psychological issue that we're talking about women getting into addictions to satisfy something else. Maybe they are having other marital issues or some personal issues. It's an escape. It could be an escape. So they have to introspect and make sure what's triggering it and then address it. The psychological well-being, again, we are talking about comprehensive well-being. So taking care of that psychological well-being. One more medical standpoint, we have to remember women can have thyroid problems and that can cause depression. So if you're depressed, that's one thing to keep in mind to get a thyroid check. Yes.
As they get older years, the thyroid can be off balance and things like that. So that's a definite reason to have continual, checks. And I think also, the whole issue of taking care of your health and getting enough exercise, not over-exercising, but I just see a lot of kind of sedentary, passive sort of lifestyles that need to be challenged. I'll just say they need to be a little bit challenged. And how about the family meal and creating, they were saying about the family?
That's one dream that I have about all families, especially as I see it slowly disappearing in my home state of Kerala, to have at least one meal where the whole family will sit round the table, have, a nice, pleasant conversations, and then enjoy a meal, home-cooked meal. Because most families, especially at night, the younger generation, I'm seeing them go out. I mean, there's no harm in going out once in a while, but, again, we're talking about balance here and having that bonding time together and having a prayer time just immediately or after dinner, having a common family prayer time. It will help your spiritual well-being and health as well.
We can imagine if the disciples, after the long walk at the road to Emmaus, invited Jesus in and said, "No, I don't have time for dinner. I'm just going to go to bed, or we'll just eat our own dinner." They would have missed the Eucharist, right?
Yeah.
So Jesus himself has chosen a meal in which to present himself to us in a sacrament, his sacramental body to be present in a shared meal. And the Passover, we can remember, was a very intimate, emotional outpouring of each person's self. Jesus washing their feet. He was truly present to them in that meal. And the final high point was, this is my body, and do this too. You do this too. So if our family life, we have no understanding or appreciating a meal together and of accepting one another at the meal, because it's also psychologically very destructive. I'm sorry, but in my family, we watch the television during the dinner. No, but can you imagine the news coming on and you're feeding yourself?
Yeah.
So eating disorders happened.
Yeah.
So much stress and so much concern. That's the time for relationship development.
Yeah.
And children need to learn how to build and model relationships. So truly that's a place that health can be maintained and grow and create a place where when we go to the Mass, we understand what a meal is, right?
Yeah.
Then we know what a meal is.
Yeah,
Then our
that's
God can come. So wow, it's a great work, great work. So in conclusion, we have an issue of women's health, which you women out there need to take up for yourselves. Please don't shy away from the responsibility to care for your own health and to take that seriously in your life as conducive to your relationship with your God and your relationship with your family, and knowing that you're modeling, giving a good model to your family about what a woman's body is and how it can serve the kingdom of God in a holistic way. So we hope to bring this topic up again in the future, women's medical issues, and keep it as an ongoing topic for us. And we thank you so very much for coming and hope that you will join us next week for another wonderful talk and examination of women's issues in her God. Thank you for coming.